Shana Tova, and thank you to Aaron and Karen, and please be seated. There's an old story. Two guys are walking through the jungle, and all of a sudden a tiger appears from a distance coming towards them. And one of the guys took out a pair of Nike sneakers from his bag and starts to put them on. He stretches. And the other guy, with a surprised look on his face, says, "Do you think you'll run faster from the tiger with those?" His friend replied, "I don't have to run faster than the tiger. I just have to run faster than you." I know, it's an old joke, but it articulates a modern and yet flawed vision of success. One that is perhaps based more on beating the other guy, friend or foe, to some imagined finish line. Last night, I shared with the congregation that the definition of success is being rewritten. Webster's dictionary has for many years defined the word success as the getting or achieving of wealth, respect, or fame. And this definition falls short. It fails. 9 out of 10 Americans define success differently. Students at Strayer University in Virginia have begun a project to redefine the definition of success. And I've interviewed a wide variety of Americans, and they found that success is more about reaching goals, building relationships, loving what you do for a living, and happiness. If that's true, then there is much we must reevaluate about ourselves, our beloved congregation, and our nation. Last night I spoke about how we might redefine success for ourselves, and found that we are given a mission statement at birth, at our namings, when we're first held in the arms by our loved ones. These traditional words have always been spoken to us. Ken yikanes la Torah, la chuppah u'ma'asim tovim. May this child be engaged in Torah, in a life filled with the blessings of learning and growth. In chuppah, a life filled with loving relationships worthy of God's blessing. And in ma'asim tovim, a life filled with the pursuit of good deeds. And this is the blueprint for a life with abiding worth. And today I'd like to talk about what success will look like for Congregation Shalom. But first I'd like to share with you a little about myself and what drove me to become a rabbi. Many of you might know this story from personal conversations we've had, but it's not a story that I've shared publicly before. Chicken soup changed the course of my life. So let me explain. When I was in my 3rd year at university, I was living away in Kingston, Ontario, when I received a phone call from a friend of my family. My father was in the hospital and incapacitated. I needed to come home as soon as I could. So many of you have received phone calls in the night just like that one. It was as though I entered into a surrealistic world so different from the reality and security I had always known. I remember it being a very dark night. I also remember that it felt as though the darkness didn't go away for several weeks, perhaps even months. I returned on the morning train to find my dad in the hospital and found that we were hit with the additional burden of finding our finances frozen and drained. It seemed so much to bear, and the situation so dire, that the fact that it all seemed so beyond my ability, it didn't seem to matter. And before those difficult events, for many years, we had been synagogue goers. All our meaningful life cycle events had taken place at the synagogue. My parents both participated in leadership positions. I became newly interested in my Jewish identity and for several years had taught in the religious school. I knew and enjoyed the company of the temple's clergy. I davened regularly on Saturday mornings, where I became friends with a group of committed and engaged Jews that spanned generations and all walks of life. In short, my synagogue was my home. It was an integral part of my life. It was my community. And as dark events descended on my life, the community responded. I have incredible memories of sitting at my table with lawyers and rabbis, accountants, advisors, and friends. They helped make sure that body and soul, we could get back on our feet. And with hard work, we did. My synagogue helped my family out of the kindness of their hearts and what I believe was a deep sense of obligation to Jewish community. And though I remember this as being a time of great darkness, I also remember moments of prayer, advice, kindness, and laughter. Sometimes I remember it with a feeling of disbelief at the many hands that uplifted my family. And it was because of those events that I knew that communities such as that one needed to be sustained. It was those dark moments that made me want to dedicate myself to finding and sustaining a community like Shalom. We're a special community. I've spent the summer at meet and greets with members and individuals who shared their hopes and aspirations for Shalom. They shared stories of their involvement and they shared their history. And what I heard that defined their pride in Shalom was not based on the Webster Dictionary definition of success. Although we are all those things, we are financially secure, if that is the wealth that we consider important. We are respected in the Jewish community, sometimes simply for our size. We have acclaim in the Milwaukee community and beyond. But those three measures of success must not be enough for us. After all, the congregation to which I grew up was more financially secure. It was bigger. It was incredibly well known. But when it came to my family and what we needed at that moment, well, we were not sustained by any of those aspects of congregational success. And that matches what I heard from you about the aspects of Shalom that you find so meaningful. What I heard from you is that there is a great hope that Shalom will continue to be a place of Torah and wisdom, a place of connection, relationships, and celebration, and a place where our greatest aspirations for goodness can be actuated. And I share those hopes. The definition of success has rightfully changed to reflect what I believe has always been our greatest strength. That is, we must be a community of caring. There's an important section of our prayer book that I particularly love entitled The Obligations Without Measure. We read and paused on it this morning. The obligations stated in the text are wonderful and enriching. The reason they're considered beyond measure by the rabbis of old was that when they're enacted by an individual, we experience the fruit of them in this world. But also when enacted, these acts of goodness would enrich us in the Olam Haba, the world to come. And perhaps more importantly, they enrich our legacy here on this earth. Here is the list: honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. And the study of Torah is equal to them all because it leads to them all. These obligations have defined Jewish life for centuries. They're important mitzvot that are a blueprint for our future. In belonging to this synagogue, to this wonderful community, it is my fondest hope that these obligations are not just what you might expect to be delivered to you. Rather, I pray that they are a charge of which you feel obligated to enact in your lives for the sake of others. There are many among us that need to find community, that need acts of compassion, that need to feel hospitality when they feel estranged. There are people among us who are sick of heart or body and need a visit or expression of care. There are individuals who are in need of reason to celebrate, some who are bereaved, some who need to find an outlet for their sense of wonder at the divine, and there are those who are in need of peace. It's a mitzvah to be present in response to those needs, not just a mitzvah for me. It's a mitzvah for you. Being present for others during these difficult times makes all the difference for the lives of those who receive these gracious acts, but it also makes all the difference to those who provide these acts. Shalom has been and will remain successful because of dedication to these principles. I want you to know that I want to engage in these obligations with you in partnership. For many years, we've had a group of people that work to create and maintain a sense of caring community. They baked mandel bread for people in hospitals. They provided Shiva services when people were in mourning, among many other wonderful projects to keep us all connected. It's time for us to redouble our efforts. And if you're interested in participating in reaching out and connecting in meaningful ways, please contact me after the holidays. I know and have seen with my own eyes the power of community coming together in moments of pain and moments of joy. It is more essential today than ever before. I've been a recipient of incredible acts of kindnesses from you. When we moved, we had offers of help and meals delivered to our door. When our children were born, we had offers of support and gifts given from your heart and words of advice that have helped us immeasurably. I'm grateful and I'm humbled. I've been so fortunate to have neighbors, friends, colleagues, and community who have reached out to us when we needed extra hands. Surrogate grandparents offering time and care and compassion. It made us feel surrounded by family when our family has been beyond arm's reach. It's been wonderful. And frankly, it has epitomized the statement so often made by Rabbi Pastor, our founding rabbi, that Congregation Shalom is a family of families. I also know that there are members of our community who do not receive this outpouring of affection and love, that are not as much in the public eye as my family might be. And there's great need. Over the past 10 years, 50% of all American Jews have changed their residences. Over 700,000 Jewish adults have moved from one state to another. Only 20% of all American Jews lived in the city of their birth. In such a mobile lifestyle, the concept of Jewish family takes on new meanings and new definitions. People are feeling more alone today than ever before, and congregational life can, at its best, provide some sense of that needed family we all know is so essential and important in our lives. At different moments in our lives, all families need support. Those that are deeply rooted here and those that will arrive in the next weeks, months, or years. They may not even know they need it. It may be me and it may be you. Our individual futures are uncertain. And there's a great modern illustration of the importance of community caring, even at unlikely times and in unlikely places. Michael Gates Gill was a Yale-educated son of the famed New Yorker writer Brendan Gill, who earned a six-figure salary working as an advertising executive. He had created huge campaigns for companies like Christian Dior and Ford and lived an even bigger life with luxury automobiles, lavish vacations, and fabulous clothes. All this before he was abruptly fired. Following this excruciating, life-changing event, his downward spiral continued. He was divorced, diagnosed with a brain tumor. He had to leave the life of privilege he always knew behind. And so it was in need of money and health insurance that when Michael returned to the block of New York that housed his childhood home, he walked into the Starbucks on the corner and sat for a while until he was asked by a woman working there if he wanted a job in that very location at Starbucks. I'm certain that it was a difficult moment for the man who earned a six-figure salary, a life of privilege, to take the job and put on a barista's apron. But he did, and what he found there was extraordinary. His life was forever changed for the better. It was in working at Starbucks that he discovered a community made up of people from all different walks of life, backgrounds, races, sexual orientation. He learned to open up to them, and he learned to accept them. both in his contributing to that community and in receiving from that community, Michael found enrichment and a new satisfaction in life. And he's written a book about his experience, How Starbucks Saved My Life, which will soon be turned into a movie with Tom Hanks in the leading role. And I'm proud to tell you that he'll be coming to speak with our congregation for our Edinger lecture on November 20th. And we look forward to that with great anticipation. Like Michael Gill, our future is uncertain. There can be moments of exaltation and there can be moments of pain. But what can be certain is that we have a community that will be there with friendship and support regardless of what the future holds. That is what a successful community looks like. And 1 + 1 + 1, our community is made up of extraordinary individuals who've been willing to give in ways that are small and large. And there are people who have been open and forthcoming in moments of vulnerability and need, teaching all of us how, even in moments of sadness, pain, or hardship, we can still have a sense of dignity and wholeness. It's the way of the world. Sometimes we're up and sometimes we're down. How we respond can bring light into the world. Congregation Shalom is exponentially greater and lighter than any one person. And each of you brings life and light into this community. There's a wonderful story that articulates that light. In a mountain village in Europe many centuries ago, there was a nobleman who was concerned about the legacy he would leave to the people of his town. The man spent a great deal of time contemplating his dilemma, and at last decided to build a synagogue. And in the course of his planning, he decided that no one would see the plans for the building until it was finished. The construction took quite a long time, much longer than he anticipated. But at long last, the project was completed. The townspeople were excited and curious about what they would find upon entering their new synagogue. And when the people came for the first time, they marveled at the synagogue's magnificence. No one could even remember seeing such a beautiful synagogue anywhere in the world. And then, noticing a seemingly obvious flaw in the design, one of the townspeople asked, "Where are the lamps? What will provide the lighting?" And the proud nobleman pointed to brackets which were strategically placed all along the walls throughout the synagogue. He then gave each family a lamp, as he explained, "Whenever you come to the synagogue, I want you to bring your lamp and light it. But each time you are not here," he said, "a part of the synagogue will be dark. This lamp will remind you that whenever you are absent, some part of God's house will be dark. Your community is relying on you for the light." I know firsthand what that light can mean. As you now know, I spent some time in darkness. I felt alone, but I had a community that uplifted me, supported me, and inspired me. On one of the bleakest and darkest days of that experience, I returned home to find a bottle of chicken soup. It was a simple and kind gesture, one that I'll never forget. It brought much-needed light to my world and inspired my path to the future. So chicken soup changed my life. Success can be measured in a variety of ways: wealth, respect, acclaim, or size. But none of those measures has been or will be the Shalom way. Shalom will define its success on the relationships forged, the spiritual growth we will undertake together as a community, and the acts of goodness that we will collectively engage. On this day of the new year 5776, may our light shine brightly. In years ahead, how bright or how dark it is inside these walls depends on each and every one of us. And I'm certain that together, our future will shine as radiantly as it ever has. I wish you all a Shana Tova Umituga, a sweet and happy New Year.